Welcome back, everybody. You're looking at the Singer 301 that I have rescued, and it is, well, you might say it's a little bit of a mess compared to some I get, but you know, here on the Vintage Sewing Machine channel, you never know what I'm going to come across. I have a real soft spot for machines that I know that can be brought back, but for whatever reason have been given up for dead or not being used anymore. I bought this machine. I'm trying to remember where I bought it, but it was a mess. It was missing this piece that covers the light bulb. I have a theory as to why that is. I think someone tried to change the light bulb and in the process took off the cover, and then it got gone. It got separated. And so what else to say about this? The tension assembly was not right. Someone had gone in and tried to fix it. Sometimes you may come across a machine, you might at first think the machine's broken, but in fact, someone has attempted to work on it on their own and they didn't know any better and they messed it up. They didn't break it necessarily, although that's always possible, but it's not working, right? It's just, it's got problems. So I'm going to kind of talk to you about this, and also when I go to name this video, it's probably going to be something like why I love Singers, and why I love Singers, why Singers are the easiest sewing machines to restore. Think about this. These are devices that were built, you know, 70, pushing 75 years ago. They were in production for a certain amount of time, and then the company came out with new models. Singer was particularly good about keeping models in production, but the 301 was in production for a while, but then eventually, you know, they came up with the 400 series and the 500 and so forth. So, these machines are wonderful, and if you come across a machine like this, or maybe you pick one up, maybe you win one on an auction, you go to pick it up and you're like, oh no, you know, I've got some paint loss up here at the top. What else is going on with this thing? Of course, you don't see a cover or a lens, the little glass lens. Well, this is one of the reasons I say that Singers are the easiest to restore. I went online and found a spare part. Here is the cover. And when I bought it, it came with the screws. There are people who salvage machines. Think of the junkyards for cars. They are the salvage yards. I don't like the word junk. Salvage yards for sewing machines. And it even has a little clip and a tiny little screw. You can't see it in the plastic. And that is used to keep the glass lens, which is sitting in this. I haven't unpacked it yet, but the glass lens is here. And it will attach, and it will all go back in a straightforward way. So that part has been taken care of. And I ended up getting, I think this came with what I ordered for whatever reason. This is a new spring, the check spring. Now when I got this, the original check spring was not functioning properly, and I thought, okay, what if that thing's broken? I need a replacement. You can get reproductions. This is one I'm holding in my hand. However, what I ended up discovering was that, in fact, the original tension assembly is actually not in that bad a shape. The original spring is somewhere sitting here. It's hiding from me at the moment. Oh, here it is. Now this machine did come with its bobbin case. Thankfully, I did not want to buy one of those because I like the vintage. And then I realized that the original check spring, I always like original parts if I can get them. The original check spring is actually not broken. It appears to be fine. It was just someone had uninstalled it, and I think I wasn't sure, or maybe the new check spring came with what I ordered. Honestly, I don't even remember. The point is, if you need a check spring, you can get one. You can get a reproduction. Isn't that amazing? After 75 years, you can still get a check spring for a sewing machine that went out of production long ago. Anyway, one of the things that I discovered as I was poking around and exploring the machine was the fact that I could not, I noticed that there was some sort of floppy or sloppy movement on the extension, and I've never had that before. I've never seen that. Well, Singer has these wonderful high quality steel bolts, and if you look at them, they're kind of like this. And if you look closely, you're going to see that there's a part of it that is kind of, I don't know if the word shim applies here, but the way it works is this screw, or bolt goes through the hole here, and of course this is what the bed extension will pivot on. So it goes in like that, and then on the other side, you can see it up close. You'll see this is what the extension is going to pivot on. You don't want it pivoting on threads. And then the threads, of course, will thread into, you can get a little closer in here, they're going to thread into a hole right here. And so that's not, particularly difficult. But of course, as fate would have it with this machine, I don't know how it happened. It's never happened before, but it can. One of these was missing. And so I've only got the one bolt or screw for this to pivot on, and that's not going to cut it. Now, it is entirely possible, and I would be willing to bet, and I'm not a betting person, that you can find, just like I found all these other salvage parts, you can find them. But I am actually going to make my own, just because I don't want to wait, because I discovered this after I'd ordered the other parts, and I want to get moving on this. I have people waiting saying, I want this machine. So I can try hunting for this part and eventually find it, or I can try to recreate it. Now that's not always easy to do, but I wanted you to see this. I went into I have this, whenever I have screws or bolts or nuts, I keep them. I never know. You can hear them rattling in here. You never know. I've actually reached into my little chest here, little tray, and I found things I needed. I saved them. So sometimes it's good to be a pack rat with some things. So, okay, get my scissor from causing me issues here. So, how am I going to do this? I went into this little tray and I was looking and looking, and I managed to find something, believe it or not. So I found this. Now this is a bolt that went to something, I don't even remember what it was, but it just happens to screw. It has threads that fit perfectly with the original threads of the hole from the original bolt. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic, but that's not going to work. Why? Because you don't want the bed extension needs to pivot, and it can, but I don't want it. It's basically the threads are smaller in diameter than is this hole, right? And if you remember, the original bolt looks like this, right? It gets wider. It has a wider diameter as you get toward the head, and that's the part that I just showed you that the bed extension pivots on. So what to do? Went back into my hardware. What did I find? I had bought something some time ago, and it was basically, they're brass colored, but they're not really, I don't think they're solid brass. Maybe they are. And this is a threaded bolt or screw, and then this is the male and this is the female end, and of course they screw together. And this piece I'm holding in my hand was longer. So I got out my, where are they? Got out my goggles, got out my Dremel tool, which is one of the most useful things since sliced bread, and I got a new sharp, fresh wheel, and I cut, let's zoom in here, it might make a little bit more sense as what I'm trying to describe. Okay. You can see down here, I took, this of course was the sort of the female end of this combination. I don't even remember. This is the end, and again this is the male side of the bolt, right? I don't even remember why I had these. I got them in a hardware store some time ago, and I can't even remember. I had a bunch of them. Anyway, so I took the Dremel tool and I cut a part of this off, hoping, fingers crossed, that I would not screw up the threads so that I could take my newfound bolt, or salvaged and scavenged from my own collection, and see if I can get it to act like this one, and sure enough, it does. So, you see the little piece I cut off with the Dremel tool, it's threaded inside, and lo and behold, when I put them together, oh, wrong bolt. Silly me. Here we go. The one I have found, you put them together, and and it screws right on. It threads perfectly. Now, if you try to do this and the threads don't work, don't force it. You'll just strip it and create all kinds of headaches and problems. So I spin it all the way on. Now, I just get it snug. I don't need to torque it down. Now, this is what I have created. I am attempting, I may be able to screw it on a little bit more. I'm attempting to recreate what Singer originally had. Now, it doesn't look quite the same, but it will function the same, okay? So what I've noticed is that if I take my newly created, let's just call this custom, okay, for lack of a better word, and just like I showed you with the other one, let's zoom back out a bit so we're not staring at it. Okay, so now when I take my newly customized, it fits right in there, and it comes up, and now if you see, there's a slight, just a slight play, but enough, it fills in that gap enough to where it will work fine. And it screws into the head of the machine over here, where I showed you guys the hole here, perfectly. And you'll know when you thread a bolt or a bolt into a threaded hole, if it doesn't want to go, or if it fights you, you know it's not meant to, right? But this one did it perfectly. Part of this was just trying to think outside the box on my part, and part of it is just dumb luck. I just got fortunate. So this is an example of what you can do. Sometimes you want to find something that you can make it work when you don't have the original part. Now, I don't want you to think you can't go looking for the original Singer bolt or part, but there are times when you have, maybe you can't, maybe there isn't one, or you're waiting for one, or there's an issue, and you really want your machine to work. If that's the case, you can fabricate on your own something that will work. Now, people have done this with things like spool pins. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. This machine, thankfully, has its spool pins. These are my favorite. I love these big spring spool pins. Because they're less apt to break. I think that's why they were invented. Now, people have created their own spool pins. They'll create them out of, little plastic, I don't know, sometimes it's like the end of a plastic, something that's about this big around made of plastic. Some people have actually taken carpentry nails, which I don't recommend. You want to be very careful when you start hammering something into where your spool pin is supposed to go. The point of all this is that do not give up. When you have a machine and you're afraid, oh, I don't have this part, it's ruined, I might as well throw it away. No, 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 do not do that. You don't have to. Not necessary. So, again, if you don't have a Dremel tool, maybe go to a hardware store. Maybe they have one that they rent, or maybe they just, maybe there's a community you have a community center with tools that people can go and use. You don't have to go and buy and spend a bunch of money on tools. You may think to yourself, well, maybe I'll use it once. Why do I want to do that? Where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, but when I talk to you all about these parts, there are lots of vintage machines you cannot do this with. Whoops. But look at this. I found this, and I found it in the right color. Again, Singer was the Chevrolet, the Toyota, the giant maker of sewing machines. There were others, like White and the Kenmores that White made for Sears. But honest to God, if you cannot find a part for a Singer, a vintage part, which is preferable, or a reproduction part, then chances are it was a fairly rare Singer, and that's not common to Singer. Most Singers were made in the hundreds of thousands. They made millions of machines over the years, and Singer was so great about not reinventing the wheel when they didn't have to. Now, some people will say that, oh, well, Singer wasn't innovative. I don't believe that's true. I think Singer was a lot like Toyota in the sense that they would innovate, but they were very slow to do so. And they watched others and let others experiment, with the innovation and some of the issues that might happen. And I just think it's amazing that all these years later, I can go online, order parts, and when I'm done, this machine, hopefully, fingers crossed, never make assumptions, is going to sew and live again, and it will find a new home. I'll have a client who says, I really want this machine. I really want to sew with it. And, Again, I have restored many brands of sewing machines. You've all seen those in my videos, and I did lots of machines before I ever made videos. But and some of them are easier than others. If you don't have a Singer, that doesn't mean you cannot get parts. Sometimes you can. It depends. Depends on the model, how long it was made, how popular it was. But just remember, whether you have a Singer or any other brand, sometimes you have to make do with what you have. So there you go. I have now, and we'll see how it works when I actually put it together, because I'm going to show it to you all. But this is a way to salvage or save a machine when you're really not sure if you'll ever find the part. And you're just like, well, now you just have this orphan, you have this big doorstop or paperweight that you can't use anymore. But don't give up. Hang in there and search for original parts, or when you have to, you make do. And we'll see how it works out. Stay tuned in one of the next videos I make. I'm going to be going through this machine, and then I will show you all when I reinstall the extension, how that works. Thank you all for watching. I finally got some nice natural light here. It's a little dim at the end of the day, but at least it's not as cloudy as it's been. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.